Hello and welcome to this virtual session enabling connectivity through technology, part of the overall event powering the innovation economy with 5G, which is sponsored by Qualcomm, and we support them and we thank them for their support. My name is Dexter Tillien. I'm the lead analyst for technology and telecoms at the IEU, and it is my pleasure to welcome with us today Tariq Amin, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Rakuten Symphony. Hi Tariq, and thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much, Dexter. Glad to be here with you.
So before we start and get into the meat of things, maybe a couple of introductory questions. First, what exactly is Open RAN in very, very few words? And also, what is Rakuten Symphony in terms of the company and its mission in the market?
So, Dexter, Open RAN, obviously many people had different definition for it. For us, it's a term that we use to define industry-wide standards for RAN interfaces that support interoperability between different vendor equipment. Since 1981, radio access has been completely locked, proprietary. Its interfaces has been very siloed, that it's been provided by single vendor, build and proprietary hardware. And with Open RAN, it's a new approach that will allow complete disaggregation of the interfaces, disaggregation of the hardware, disaggregation of the software, allowing a better agility to move from a proprietary implementation of hardware to a completely driven software architecture and one of the most important elements in building a telecommunication network on radio. So, Rakuten Symphony started its journey by building one of the most innovative architecture in telecommunication in Japan. We started in 2018 with a dream to build a completely disaggregated infrastructure, cloudified infrastructure, an architecture that lives on the cloud in every essence, from radio to core to transport. And we enabled this disruption through the launch and successful launch of Rakuten Mobile. And during this journey, we all thought, why do we need to keep this technology only in Japan? I think it behooves us as an organization to share the lessons learned, the advancements that we have done in Japan with the rest of the world. Rakuten Symphony originated as an idea to build a platform connectivity organization to deliver on a new architecture and a new foundation to drive cost efficiency, advancements in providing connectivity, and and what I call it to be a generation-free evolution as we migrate from 1G to 2G to 3G to 5G and the future. We needed to be far more driven to software, and Symphony really originated from the lessons learned of deploying Rakuten Mobile in Japan, packaging the platform and the organization, not just only around Open RAN, but it is about a unified cloud architecture, network functions, digital experiences. But the essence of Symphony is all about a platform connectivity organization and software and the DNA of the entire organization on how we deliver radio, core, transport, and intelligent operations.
That's very interesting. And obviously, when we're discussing disintegration, disintegrating the software and the hardware and software becoming more important, that means having different partners and having different companies working toward that aim. So how important is collaboration when it comes to that kind of new stage of connectivity?
Yeah, Dexter, I wish I could share a little bit of my story, what happened with us in 2018, when we started this dream of building Rakuten Mobile in the early days. I immediately recognized if we are going to build this new architecture, build this new disruption, frankly speaking, we needed a very different approach on how we collaborate as an ecosystem. How do you collaborate as partners, vendors? So the first thing that we did is I call it, I had to assemble a coalition of willing partners. Individuals, companies, and organizations that were really convicted and believed that it is time for change. It's time to change this architecture that hasn't seen a massive evolution from the early days of when we launched GSM in the 1G days in 1981 till today. from proprietary hardware to software. And we quickly realized that this is the essence of cloudified architecture. Open RAN could only be realized through partnership across industry and partnership across organization and vendors and partners that are really, really convicted and believe that this is the time to change this platform architecture. So I think, Dexter, it's absolutely vital, more than any time before, being interlinked towards common goals and objectives, having a way how to manage the partners, how to create incentives, and honestly, how to create a business model in which everybody thrives with such an open architecture.
Yes, and that's also very important, having multiple partners helping toward that goal. Maybe moving more specifically in terms of 5G. So you've launched 5G about a year ago in Japan. 5G has been around for a couple of years globally. A lot of operators and vendors are focusing far more into the enterprise because digital transformation has become a big thing, especially since COVID. So maybe if you can say a few words and explain first the importance of 5G in terms of that digital transformation journey, in terms of connectivity, but more specifically, what does Open RAN bring to that system? What does it do more than the traditional system of one vendor?
So I think when we look at 5G, one would realize that this technology finally bring advancements in wireless technology that could really unravel use cases both on both consumer side as well as enterprise. In our view of 5G implementation, we were far more focused on implementation of an architecture that could leverage this advanced standards as what 5G would offer. So allow me to elaborate a little bit on what I mean on that. The first thing was the foundation of what we define as an edge. So while most deployment happened in telecommunication network with a centralized architecture, we looked at an opportunity to bring content closer to the user. Our federated edge architecture is one of the world's largest edge network deployment today in Japan, with over 4,000 edge locations that are completely unmanaged because of the automation that we have implemented into this framework. And the advantage of deploying an edge architecture, the one that exists in our 5G network in Japan, is to deliver an ultra low latency to the consumer and the enterprise. And I think this is, for me, what really excites me the most. We are almost always talking about speed and throughput. To me, this is secondary to the importance of latency to what 5G means. Now, Open RAN have enabled us to disaggregate, what we call the baseband unit into the functions of central unit and distributed unit. And the ability for us to locate the DU all the way to the far edge and enable application that could sit on the top, such as CDN and MEC, allowed us to deliver content at an extreme ultra low latency. So we think 5G build right is an absolute transformative technology. The focus for us is all about latency. Today, we will see the advantage of ultra low latency application to mission critical, whether it is at the enterprise, and I believe future use cases will emerge in the consumer domain as well that will leverage this advancements in this technology. So for us, 5G is not just about speed. It is about an architecture evolution. It is about mass deployment of edge platforms, leveraging this cloud infrastructure, disaggregated software, hardware, and taking advantage of an ultra low latency enablement for, I hope what was going to come is the killer applications that everybody is working towards that will leverage the advancement in 5G.
Yes, and maybe if you could give some example of those ultra low latency application that you're seeing now or you expect to see in the coming years, just to kind of give example both on the consumer and enterprise side in terms of things that could be done.
Absolutely. So let me on the consumer side, I'll take the easy one. I mean, you look at gaming. I'll give you one example of gaming, and if you look at the emergence of cloud gaming over the last few years, you would notice that cloud gaming never been able to succeed running on a wireless infrastructure. Now, not because the throughput is not good in a wireless infrastructure, but largely because the latency requirement for multiplayer gaming to do that in near real time and real time and guarantee the latency requirements for AAA titles is almost virtually impossible in both 3G and 4G era. And now 5G comes in, and one clear use case could be the emergence of cloud gaming, leveraging 5G technology and edge architecture as a consumer. And this is one example. Now, for enterprise, and especially when I think about factories and the factories of the future and what we could do to do various slices that you could guarantee quality in real time and differentiation of experiences that would enable whether it is robotic manufacturing processes differentiated across the entire factory, offer different slices that would guarantee different experiences and different quality of service. This is also a technology that you could never do in 4G. It is no doubt that we're going to see a massive transformation on enterprise and manufacturing thanks to 5G emergent into its architecture.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, 5G is really a game changer, both from the consumer, especially on the enterprise side. Digital transformation has become a clear focus, especially as I said earlier with COVID. So Rakuten is a pioneer when it comes to Open RAN. One of the first operator to do so, I believe the first operator to do so. We've seen more operators doing so. So Vodafone has announced a few things in Europe. It's probably the most advanced. You've recently announced a deal with Dish, but I'm interested in terms of what have you learned from your own rollout in terms of things that have surprised you or things that maybe you didn't expect or things that you expected but have worked either far better than you thought they would be, or maybe things that didn't quite work out as you expected them to be. So kind of
Yeah.
real farm application.
So Dexter, maybe I will start telling you if anybody thinks deploying Open RAN architecture on a commodity appliance is a trivial matter. Let me tell you, it was a daunting challenge. It wasn't simple. It wasn't easy. And this journey came with enormous challenges. The first discovery that we went through is, while the idea of Open RAN, well before Rakuten wanted to go and embrace this vision, existed in industry forums and standards, many of the parts around how to enable the migration of a traditional baseband into a software platform architecture running on a commodity appliance took quite a bit of energy to successfully deploy this. We learned the importance of understanding the real-time operating system and the Linux environment, and the criticality of tuning this to deliver on the latency that an Open RAN architecture would need. And these are not the same that you would find in IT applications. So the first lessons learned from me personally, not all clouds are built the same. And, we learned quickly that, an edge cloud architecture is absolutely needed, and it needed to be tuned in order to make scalability and capacity for a completely open RAN architecture. That was not trivial, and that was not easy. It took us a while, but we've got to a point where we are extremely happy about the quality that we're delivering in Rakuten Mobile Network. The second lessons learned is Open RAN alone, without changing the underlying data platform, does not deliver on the efficiency and the productivity one would expect from such an advanced architecture. So we spend a significant amount of time investing in reimagining what the industry called OSS in a new implementation of how we do telemetry, service assurance, lifecycle management, fault performance configuration across all of the facets of managing and operating this cloudified architecture. That was also not simple. It required us to really rethink completely about how networks are engineered. And let me take one specific example for you. I think from the inception of early days of any mobile technology, you will discover that the transaction between a network element to an element management system, to an OSS, to a data lake. We all thought that this is just absolutely complex. In Rakuten Mobile 5G network today, we removed completely the EMS system. We moved into an OBF framework. And this is actually what we are also working with Dish on enabling, to make sure that we have real-time service assurance, real-time telemetry, real-time reactivity to address customer issues, to address real-time optimization into the network. So in general, I would say it hasn't been an easy journey. Lots of lessons learned. For me, the biggest one is not all cloud built the same, and getting the ability to understand all the way from the host operating system to our hypervisor to our, whether it is a container orchestration system or VM orchestration system. That took a while. It took a while to get to a point where we have a stable architecture, scalable architecture, and completely orchestrated across all of the VNFs and CNFs that we have deployed in Rakuten Network. So not an easy journey by any stretch of imagination.
Yes, I'm sure it wasn't. And then every time there's a new paradigm coming in, it's always difficult. And based on that, every time something new comes in that kind of wants to take over something that's been there for quite a while, which is the old architecture or the legacy architecture, there are always some issues raised by, I guess, the incumbent and the people in the market. So we're talking about standardization. Does it exist with Open RAN? We're talking about interoperability. Does it exist with Open RAN between the different elements and the different operators? We're also talking about security. Is it as secure as a traditional network when you only have one player? So maybe you respond to those issues that have been raised and to see whether they're really relevant to the market.
Yeah, they're absolutely relevant. I mean, let me just, before I address all of them, I want to encourage everybody that is listening to think about what would have happened to the enterprise had the cloud not existed. What would have happened to the innovations that we're seeing today on the enterprise side with the emergence of phenomenal applications that have benefited all of our life? And I would give this analogy that it is absolutely important that we think of the same when it comes to telecommunication workloads. The time is right for evolution. The time is correct because the technology is ready and the technology is mature to take telco workload and move that to the cloud. I think that argument today, I believe, is settled. Almost every telecommunication company across the world believe that a blueprint architecture that's built on a cloudified architecture and one in which software lives in the essence of the DNA of this platform is the right technology choices we need to do. It is no doubt with any new technology, there are going to be lessons learned and issues that we need to overcome. But these issues now in our software world is much easier. Fixing them in an environment that depends only in software release cycles is much easier than to worry about changing of hardware. We have to work together as an industry to continue to advance standards, to continue to advance interoperability. I really like what is happening today with the Open RAN forum and what we are trying to do that around standardization of all interfaces, getting a larger community of operators, partners, vendors to collaborate to drive the definition of all the standards. Now, in security, the one thing I want to really leave everybody with, there is nothing called secure as a 100% secure product today, by the way. I hope nobody feels comfortable, even in existing architecture, that it is secure. If you are a chief security officer in a company, your job is to always be paranoid. That's when I know you are the best security officer. I am paranoid not just only about Open RAN, but any architecture that we currently have in the network, legacy or new. So we need to, of course, advance and improve security architecture of Open RAN, but there is one amazing thing about it. With the open interfaces come amazing opportunity. Now, you could do a lot of amazing things to harden and secure Open RAN. You have amazing visibility. We have an opportunity to drive a zero trust framework for the first time ever in radio access. I think that's really, really positive thing. And all the attention that Open RAN is getting is an absolutely positive and welcome thing by myself, Rakuten Symphony, and Rakuten Group as a whole. And only through industry collaboration, we think we're going to address all of the gaps that we see today on the technology.
Thank you very much, Tarek. That's very, very interesting elements you given us there in terms of Open RAN. So to sum up, partnership is critical, especially if you disintegrate hardware and software as in Open RAN. The cloud is key, but it's difficult to do so because not all clouds are the same. And the most important thing is not speed or throughput, but it is indeed latency. And we're going to see it in terms of applications such as cloud gaming on the consumer side, or in terms of factory network slicing on the enterprise side. So, Tarek, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you very much to our audience for joining us as well. And thank you very much to Qualcomm for sponsoring this webinar. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.